Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show, Kicking It. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Indian Hills Studios, from the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. And I've got a movie tonight that just shakes the boundaries of what we consider extreme, and it's something that the real Dr. Venkman himself kind of sort of prescribed, and I think he regrets that because the diagnosis for him is rather grim. This movie is, well, Doctor, good evening, sir. How are you?
Well, I'll just say this movie was.
Go ahead.
I know
you're bitching about it already.
I'll just say this movie was cheap and easy to find, like a floozy on a $2 binge. You know what? After I saw this, I told you to go back and watch the first one. I watched 3 movies last night, man. I watched the first one of this, Sinners and Winners and Sinners. Way better than this. But,
okay, so for the people that don't know, of course, there's something called like the Lucky Stars sort of trilogy that has like that Sammo Hung's involved in, and even
it's not really.
It's not really a trilogy. That's why I said because you have a lot of the same people, but they kind of switch roles. So this is actually the second film that came out in 1985, and it's called My Lucky Stars. It has another title that deals with something I'll mention in a few moments if you saw the Philippines version of it. But this movie's batshit crazy. It's insane. It absolutely reeks of 80s awesomeness. I'm not a fan of action comedy. You know that, RDV. I gotta sit there and say, if I had seen this film first, you might say I was an action fan, because everything in here is just so absurd. No, you don't even care about the movie. So this is classic 1980s foolishness on steroids, and gladly so. So it's bookended by some great, phenomenal action scenes, which we are going to talk about, which I don't even think it's arguable how good they are. And Jackie Chan's in them. But the rest of the movie's filled up with the 5 idiots, so to speak. So, Doctor, let me give you the floor. I know as people are starting to pile in here, they want to hear how crazy this movie is. And I'm going to go over it scene by scene, but you tell me what your initial thoughts are, besides not liking it.
It was a bore to me. The last 10 minutes is where all the action is. And whenever Jackie Chan came on the stream, unlike his role in the first movie, he's not a bumbling idiot. This one, he's more serious. He's more confident. They actually let him do more stuff. In this movie, basically, I would say there's a Sammo Hung, and he has a group of 4 of their friends. They're supposed to be all childhood friends. They're all from orphanage from back in the day.
He's putting the gang back together.
Yes. Well, Jackie Chan. What it is Jackie Chan needs them because he's going after an ex-cop who basically stole a bunch of diamonds. Is working for the mob, the mobs basically. So they can't get close to him, and they have Jackie Chan's partner being held hostage. So he said, you know what? He tells the superintendent. He calls him in the which was hilarious. So that was funny though. He calls him from Japan, and this guy is over in somewhere else, and he's like, wife's like, don't answer the phone. She's like, it's always ringing, and she's like, well, answer it. There's like 6 different phones from like 6 different countries, so she's trying to figure out which one it is. And then he's going there, and I love it because he gets up, he's like, I'll do it myself, and he's like, hello, oh, it's Japan, yay! And I'm like, what the heck? He's all excited because it's Japan, obviously because he maybe thought it was Jackie Chan's character. But anyway, he tells him that he needs Sammo Hung and his old crew because he needs thieves to catch a thief. And that's basically how it gets it. And then, so they're assigned one of the police detectives, basically like hot assistant to be as their accomplice because they prepared a ruse saying that they...
No. You're using way too many words. The correct word for her would be babysitter.
Well, she was called baby as her cosign, but...
I know that, right?
But with that, and that's, like I said, up until the point where they go into the hotel room and when they get to Japan, that's when it just gets horrible. And you're like, I just want to fast forward to the next 15 minutes because
there is a chunk of time that I will agree with you that you're looking at this movie going, put me out of my misery. Just get back to the good stuff, because now kind of starting off the way I would describe it is you see a really great action sequence at the beginning with Jackie Chan and his partner that nobody cares about, right? And what's cool about it is they're chasing these bad dudes, and they're at this theme park, which is a legitimate theme park. And here's the thing that I liked about this. We had talked about not just Sammo Hung, but just in the 80s, kind of redefining what it meant to be in Asian cinema, where they were filming things, locally, real time, not period pieces, any of that stuff, and still having martial arts. So there was a lot of creativity, I think, that we would see in films. And there is definitely some in here, which I'm going to defend. We had talked recently about The Girls with Guns with type movie with Cynthia Rothrock in it, Michelle Yeoh for Yes, Madam, which also came out in 1985. And kind of like that, there's definitely some great scenes in here. So in here at the beginning, they chase these bad dudes, and of course it's evil Jap guys in suits, and they're in this outdoor park, and it's wintertime. You can see the smoke on their breath, and you've got Mount Fuji in the background. So it's a nice, it's a good looking backdrop. It's very attractive. It's very colorful. And what's really absurd, that should be your first clue about this, is not that they're chasing bad guys in suits and people are wandering around like a theme park. It's the fact that when they think that they corner the guys and have a little bit of a fights, ninjas pop out everywhere. I think the blue ones and the black ones, right?
Yes.
So like, oh my God, here's a ninja group within not even 5 minutes of the movie. And the fight scenes are actually really good at the beginning. And then, of course, there's some stunt work. You see Jackie Chan just literally running up the Ferris wheel by himself, just scurrying up there like a monkey really quick. And you're like, holy shit, that's a really, really good scene. And climbing back down and forgetting the comedy element to it. I've always said this to you, Doctor, that I sometimes wish in these movies they kept a little bit of a serious or darker tone, or whatever you want to call it, because the action's that good. And sometimes I think the comedy takes away from it. I know it's supposed to be a place to catch your breath before it. But to your point, in a moment when we talk about the boring middle part, this opening sequence, I think within 5 minutes gets you hooked. You got great chase scenes in a car. You've got great outdoor stunts. You've got Jackie Chan giving you a lot of Jackie Chan stuff at the beginning. So even though he's only in the first few minutes and the last 10 or so, to your point, they know how to hook you. And I think that's a testament to the start of what should have been a fantastic film, but it's fantastic in its own rights.
Like I said, it's two different films. It's Jackie Chan, a police story, and then they have Sammo Hung comedy routine. That's another thing I don't like it too. It's like you're trying to combine them, but it's just like for the most part, you don't see Jackie Chan. He's in the beginning, and then a little bit, and then he's at the end, and that's it. I was like, what? But he's on a cover being, it's Jackie Chan and My Lucky Stars, because he's the main star. They even went so far, they brought in Bolo Young in this.
Well, Bolo Young's the man, and here's the thing: Bolo Young doesn't have a screen credit, but I'm like, oh, there's Bolo. This is getting in better because they've got everybody that's a name that I remember, and I'm not 100% familiar with everybody from that time, but I've always known Bolo, and I know you know Bolo. So apparently, it's just like the subplot for one of the dudes who's like pretending to be a dentist and trying to shake him down or whatever, and then Bolo's this guy who comes in, and what Bolo's trying to do is put a beat down on the dentist because the dentist is screwing his wife, but his wife knows this isn't the real dentist. So they kind of make him do the eye wink thing or like that. But Bolo's having none of it. And he's just pimp slapping and bitch slapping everybody left and right in like a minute or two. And I'm like, wow, you can't get away with beating women these days anywhere. But I'm like, I wanted to see more Bolo in this film. And unfortunately, that's all we got. But very memorable.
I'd say the most overall annoying thing about this whole movie is Fruit Chan. He plays the little guy that they make fun of all the time in the movie.
The guy that's mentally retarded.
And what's funny, as I said, they tried to do the same thing they did in the first movie, but they moved Sammo Hung to a different guy's character because the one actor did not appear in this as he did in the first movie. So, and where Sammo Hung was the one that was always being bullied, but he in the first movie said is like, you know what? I'd rather have friends than because I used to be the guy who picked on everybody, and that's why he did everything. He was a comedy stooge. This guy is just like, man, you should just punch him. He's like Patton Oswalt, the Asian Patton Oswalt, but not funny.
There you go. That's a good description. I mean, see, your point is, and here's the thing. I didn't see the first movie. I don't know anything about it. So as a standalone, to your point, this is about the point in the film where we're getting in, we get the gist of a plot. You get your 2 or 3 minute individual character scene. You got the smooth guy, you've got the retard guy, you've got the ESP guy, and I'm gonna bitch about him because
his name is Exhaust Pipe. Get it right.
I don't care. It's the ESP guy because all right, Jackie Chan disappears from the scene. Sammo's getting his posse together and they're all misfits or whatever, and it's supposed to be funny, but they're all supposed to be a little bit different and quirky, and we see that in a bunch of scenes. whatever. But what's weird is okay, they go to the good guy boss lair, which is this nice house inside, and they're sitting down because they're supposed to meet somebody that's supposed to give them the details. So it's kind of James Bondish. Okay, let's meet here and let me give you the layout of what's going on. You guys figure it out and get it done. So okay, so they sit down, they all start like eating grapes, and then like the guy that's the main guy comes in there, and ESP guy I call him ESP guy because he keeps reading books on like how to learn ESP, which is a stupid gimmick. And then he's looking at everybody and they're all getting kind of bitchy with each other, probably because of low blood sugar, because they're eating grapes and they're not eating red meat. And then all of a sudden, everyone gets explosive diarrhea from eating the grapes, and probably because of the ESP. And then the main good guy who's in there too gets it as well. And they run to the toilet, and the one guy's sitting on there. He's like, no, there's 4 others go. And the other guy's like, well, what's up? I'm like, what? I don't get it. Is this supposed to be funny? Because it's not. I'd rather see Bolo bitch slap somebody off of the old womp 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 missing identity kind of thing, and know that, because at least somebody's getting slapped. Here, everybody's faking getting the poops, and I got to tell you, doctor, I know you're.
They weren't faking it because what as they eat the grapes. Remember the grapes? That's the guy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you get the little.
At first they go into it, but then they realize it actually is. It wasn't supposed. Because, and like I said, if you watch the first movie, this guy, they're playing up another prank on this guy. This exhaust pipe. Exhaust pipe is the crazy guy of the group. He's the idiot. He's the idiot of all the idiots. He makes almost makes Fruit Chan, the little guy. Just almost makes him less. I guess more acceptable. I don't know. It's hard because I still go with exhaust pipe, because exhaust pipe is still funny.
Well, and it's weird too because there's a scene pretty much right after this too, where you're introduced to the babysitter chick, who's supposed to know martial arts, but I wasn't buying it, and she's basically dressed like a hooker with black leather and stuff, and it's like, okay.
Fine, man.
There was a thing in the 80s. No, but here's the thing. They introduce her as being this beautiful one that all the guys are going gaga like 10-year-olds, but really it's more like rapey 12-year-olds. And I hate using that word because we get, dinged for that.
Well, everything they do is
supposed to be funny, where they pretend to be ninjas, and a smooth, sexy, suave guy comes in and is like, "Did you hear that? There's somebody outside your window." And then one of them dressed up as ninja comes in, ties them together, and he's like, "This may be our last moment together." And he's trying to kiss her, and she's like, "No, no, no." And she's standing there in her negligee, and it's of course very cold in the room. But the problem is they don't just do it once where you go, okay, I get the juvenile humor. Ha ha, that must be a Hong Kong thing with women. But then everybody literally takes turns doing this. And this goes on for literally like about 5 to 7 minutes, where they all are running in there, getting tied up and tied down, falling on the bed, all saying dumb stuff. And I'm like, this pseudo rapey kind of scene is not funny. What wasn't meant to be funny. She doesn't even kick their ass. Of course, they get found out or whatever. And I'm like, that's not a way you introduce a female into it, or make me want to root for these 5 guys, which are supposed to be stupid ass criminals anyway. It just really was a long sequence of disturbing imagery.
That's why I said you should. It would have helped a lot if you would have watched the first movie first, because it explains the way they are. So jumping in the middle of a series, you're like, yeah, you're gonna get irritated by that.
They're driving around, and I'm just wondering how bizarre this is, because at least it's the 80s, and they're continuing being bizarre. So like there's a scene where they where ESP guy's trying to use his ESP to drive the car, and of course rear ends somebody, and it's a bus, and a dude comes out, and I'm like, man, he's got the 70s, he's got the shaft, he's got the perm going on, he's got rocking a Jerry curl, and it's this huge thing, it's a borderline afro, and of course this little guy's Asian.
You weren't that bad.
It was complete 80s, dripping wet. Go back and look.
I saw it, and it wasn't that bad.
And then I'm not saying it was bad. I'm kind of cool that they did it. It was because it was so bizarre. But what's even worse is they all get out in there. They're all like, "Oh, we're going to strong arm this guy a little bit, make it seem like it's his fault." But the guy's just sitting there like, and you think he's the retard with an 85 IQ, and then all of a sudden, what these guys don't realize, and this is how stupid they are as a group, is the dude called all his other union buddies, and they surrounded him in their buses, and they all come out to support their guy that's about ready to get rolled by these 5 dumbasses. And then it's like this Benny Hill minus the music chase scene where you get the overhead shot of them running all the way around the bosses and everything too, because they can't convince them that, hey, we're from the same hometown or whatever like that. And I'm like, I don't get it. I kind of like the idea of all these guys with these Jericho or pseudo afros chasing around, sticking up for the boy, because we did say in the Cynthia movie that we talked about last time, that you don't mess with taxi cab drivers because they call their backup, their peeps come and they help save the day. And that happens here. So I'm just saying that might be a thing we have to consider going forward, that you don't.
I think that scene would have been a whole much better if you would have had Sammo Hung in that character instead of having Fruit Chan there, because that's what ruined it. That's what because that they did similar stuff in the first movie, but it made more sense because the roles were. So the fact that they couldn't get John, I think it was named Chum, couldn't get he's a guy from the other movie we did with Michelle Yeoh, Police Madam. He's the guy with the crazy, the big glasses and the crazy hair. He's
got to like laugh. Yep.
Yeah. That guy, it was great in that role, but for whatever reason they couldn't get. He didn't come back for this movie, so they put Sammo Hung, who's supposed to be the kind of the dopey, when they make fun of all the time. They throw him into the serious role. It's like, what? Why is he in this? But like I said, like it just felt like it's like it's like a last minute decision. Like maybe the guy got sick or got injured, so they need somebody. They're like, here, you off the street, you come here. And it's like they got the worst possible guy. They're like, hey, I'll help you. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, I appreciate the fact that despite Chan's absence, Sammo and all these guys get involved in a little bit of action. And there's some sequences, mostly failing ones to me, that at least it seems kind of different. So I really didn't know what to expect, and I appreciated that to it. And at this point, I was almost agreeing with you, going, I like how bizarre this movie is and how completely 1980s batshit crazy it is. But here's the thing, Doctor. Within one scene, all of a sudden I started paying attention, and then from there on, the last third of the movie, the third act, it got a gazillion times better. And I'm not even talking about the last 10 minutes, which I think we'll both agree is just.
Are you talking about the scene with
No, not yet.
With Jackie Chan coming with Sammo Hung?
Not yet. It's the scene where they concoct a stupid idea of going, hey, here's 20 million Hong Kong dollars, which is probably like 50 American cents back then. Let's go to the evil underground lair that's somehow connected to this mystery funhouse of horror next to Mount Fuji, which we'll find out, of course, because evil bad guy layers are always incredible. And let's throw this money around while we're playing this whatever bizarre dice game that looks like roll a 1 through 6 on the dice, and if you land on it, you win money, sort of thing. So the odds are completely against you. The house does win. But the thing is, it all turns literally with the flick of a wrist. All of a sudden, you see this lady in this really dark kimono sash, and she's what I call the evil dice roller. She's got this sneer look in her eyes. She looks like she could kill you with them. She's staring daggers at these dipshits who are throwing their money around or whatever. And it turns out that, like, again, they kind of get captured and they end up going through this. You get split up here a little bit. But where it gets really, really good is it's not just a cute character, because she gets replaced. She ends up going into the back alleyway. And then, of course, the babysitter chick who's with them goes back there. And it turns out that the main bad guy boss, sort of whatever, has this chick as his muscle. And it turns out that in here, she actually goes to kick ass and kicks baby's ass up and down. And this scene alone is worth the price of watching this movie. All the pain and suffering with all the perms and the nonsense, and all the stupid things that all these dumb idiots do, because it's just incredible. And this lady, when she took her sash off, you're like, uh-oh, what's going on? It's going to be a cat fight. So you're like, you're expecting it to happen. And okay, it's going to be what it's going to be. But as I put in the notes, I never heard of this lady, never seen her before, but she's a legitimate female powerlifter, looks natural, especially for the times. I love saying the name. I believe it's Japanese. Michiko Nishiwaki. Yep. So Michiko Nishiwaki, she takes off her sash or whatever and drops her thing down, and it's really elegant the way she does it. And she does her pose, and she's all muscular and a very thin, athletic, powerlifting sort of build. And she just goes to town and beats the shit out of babysitter girl, who gets in very little offense basically, but it's a beatdown. The guy has to basically put her down, and from here on out, it's just gonzo, incredible stunts and action scenes. And Jackie Chan is in there and ends up basically going through this funhouse scene, and I'll let you talk about it here in a moment. But I gotta sit there and say, oh my God, this totally turned because of her character, what she did, the fight she was in, and from here on out, the movie delivers. I mean, you forget all the stupid, dumb stuff. You forget all the stuff and all the pain that you've been through. If you survived to this point, you are going to be rewarded, because this last 15 minutes is phenomenal. Go ahead, Doctor. I'll add in some stuff, but you talk about it. You're right. Well, it is the best part of the movie.
Like I said, the last, I felt like, not 15 minutes, the last 10, because you see that girl basically, she's awesome. She's like super buff rip, and the other girl's like, oh crap. So then they're fighting, and then they both tackle each other through the plastic screening and whatever the walls they have.
Well, glass breaking was 80s, so that's going to happen.
It wasn't glass; it was paper breaking.
Well, there was glass as well when they go through some other stunts, but yes.
Yeah. Yes. So Sammo Hung goes up and he looks at the lake. She's like, "Oh, you want to fight?" He's like, "You want to fight me too now?" And he's like, shakes his finger right for it, and she's like, and he just one punches her, knocks her out instantly. I was like, you trying to build this up, trying to sell her as being tough, and then he just gets punched out by him. I was like, what? That made me chuckle a little bit, but I was just like, wow. But Jackie Chan going through the horror thing and just having like, he doesn't know what's a prop and what's person, because there's people in there, pretending to actually be creatures in there. And the funny thing is, they actually did a Dragon Ball as a Z reference in there.
Yeah. Yeah. You see the guy formed it with his hands or whatever like that.
No, not like, that. I'm talking about the mannequin that Jackie Chan was dressed up as. He was dressed. He was dressed up in a costume, and he was going around. It was a popular Japanese character, and I thought, I'm like, first I'm like, is this Jackie Chan? Then I reckon, because actually is him speaking. That's not somebody else.
Right.
So him doing the little noises stuff. I'm like, oh, it is Jackie Chan in there. Because at first I looked away because I got bored, and then I looked back and I was like, "Oh, it is Jackie Chan." Because obviously, no one else could do. Only Sammo Hung and him could actually fight. But I thought it was funny though. But the guys, when they're the main group, when they decided to fight, only one of them knew how to fight as Sammo Hung, so they all hid behind him. But I love their poses, and they did the same thing in Winners and Sinners. Whenever they got to fight, especially the pretty boy guy, he's doing the Karate Kid thing. He's doing the crane, and he's like, and then you got the other guy, exhaust pipe, doing the little snake thing.
The SPI is doing the cobra, sticking his tongue out. And all
that. Yeah. They don't know, but what's hilarious though is like even in the first movie, it worked because these people are like, well, you don't know what movies that he knows. They kind of put him because it's so weird, crazy. It's possible back then because there was a lot of different martial arts fighting styles. So it was kind of believable, but it was kind of funny though because they do that and the one guy, pretty boy, Charlie Sheen is the actor. He actually could fight when they let him. Yep. The other ones even
they're passable at least.
Yeah, the other ones are passable. And I thought about was because even ESP guy exhaust pipe, even the first movie, he does the same thing where he just kind of like psychs up character and then he takes like a cheap punch and then he runs away. So he did in this movie too. I was like, come on, really?
Well, the thing is everybody again gets their own little showcase, even if it's only for a few moves or whatever. With the dumbass five, whatever dumb name we need to come up with them. But the thing about Jackie Chan showing up here at the end, I'm not offended. I don't feel like it was a gimmick, like let's show up for the first 10 or last 10. That didn't really bother me because what he does in this movie, he really delivers. And honestly, to your point, you said at the beginning, you said it backstage as well. When shockingly, I discovered you didn't like this film. He was pretty serious in this, at least his character was. And so there's no him smiling, him being goofy, none of this kind of stuff, no drunken master nonsense. This is just him straight out fighting. And then Sammo Hung, everyone will talk about, oh yeah, he got injured, went to the same school, but could still move even though he's fat or whatever you want to call him. I don't really care as long as you can move. And again, one of the themes we joked about with 80s films, and we were curious to see if this happened in the martial arts cinema, the Asian one that we're looking at is, okay, can a woman kick ass? You betcha. Do you mess with unionized car people? No, you definitely don't. We'll see if that extends out to, like, say, waiters or other potential 1099 type employees later with other films. But also, lots of glass breaking. Everybody gets their moments to shine, but you get some incredible stunts. And so there's an extended sequence of Jackie Chan having to work his way through this fun house before he literally breaks through a wall, and he's right there in like the bad guy lair. There, when the fight really breaks out, he's going back and forth with one dude, and he's sitting there and he like switches from like right-handed to left-handed, and he's posing with his fists, and the camera's just focusing on his fists up, that kind of half a headshot. And this is just a really cool scene. I don't know if it's makeup. I really don't know, but I loved it so much. I put a note to talk about it. And that's this. He's standing there, and there's that pause before they go into their second or third sequence of punches and kicks. And from his left nostril, a little drop of blood just starts to come out, and he kind of touches it, looks at it, and then, of course, they cut into their thing. And I'm thinking he really got popped in the nose just enough, a little bit. And then there's also another scene where he's fighting, and they made it to the upstairs, and of course, one guy gets tossed off, literally, and you see him go over the top and land on his back. And yes, of course, it's a prepped little area for to land on, but there's some scenes in here where the guys are getting tumbled and tossed and thrown and landing on like concrete and the floor. And I know they're tucking their chin. I know they're rolling. I know they're slow motioning some of the scenes so we can appreciate what it's like. And I know there's sound effects. I know it's not real glass, but all these practical scenes or stunts add up in these scenes, and they're fantastic. So you get plenty of Jackie Chan. You get plenty of Sammo. You get enough of the goofy guys. You got your cat fight with the two ladies. The boss guys aren't sitting there going like cowards. They're sitting there kicking ass. Of course, they lose. And then when everything's over, the movie ends, which is how it should be. But oh my God, Doctor, I was shocked based on, 70, 75 minutes of this movie, how good the ending was with the action. Seriously. What else would you like to say about that?
It seems like they plan out the first part, like the ending of the movie, and then the first part, in the middle, you're like, what do we do? Oh, we'll just improvise. That's what it felt like. You should watch, let's say, when you go back and watch the first movie, you should see the forklift scene in the warehouse. That will blow your mind, too. Yes, and Jackie Chan is known for doing his own stunts, even the people in there. Everyone in that movie is a martial artist. They just play it down. Some are obviously better than the others. But do you really know that? Because we only see when they emphasize who's the best, the lead character. Like Jackie Chan was supposed to be the lead character, but not really. Sammo Hung is the lead character's whole entire movie, even though they shared, because they're both their companies combined.
Well, you had mentioned before, talking about actors in other films, a point that I wanted to emphasize, because I think it's a point that needs to be, and that's this. We talked about before how when we've reviewed our Chuck Norris films, how he's an everyday guy, in real life a fighter. He doesn't look Hollywood, and he's not one of these 150-pound, 5'8" guys that they made to be ass kickers in today's comic book CGI fests. When everybody looks somewhat normal, in these Asian films, nobody really stands out in terms of their attractiveness. You don't know who could kick ass or not, but also I think the culture over there too, being more accepting of it. We're joking with this theme about, hey, you don't know if that little skinny little kid, on the street, scrounging for change or noodles or something like that, could kick your ass because he's like a third-degree Cobra master or something. And that's one of the unknown things, is that we automatically assume that anybody in any of these films can kick ass on some level, or they have some sort of command mastery of a particular martial art. And that's the beauty and the nature of it, is that, we're not going to bring the guns out. You know what? You run over my foot in the parking lot, we're going to get out, we're going to settle us like men with karate, not with guns or stupid stuff.
And it's unbelievable in Japan and parts in Hong Kong, because you were, from little on, you're raised in martial arts. Mm-hmm. That's just the way of their way of life. They've continued that. I don't know if they still do that today over there, but obviously maybe not. Who knows? Yeah, that's what really helped out, and that's what made Hollywood and Hong Kong cinema stand apart. Hollywood had people trying to do the moves, but they couldn't do them, or when they did it, they had to speed it up. Mm-hmm. Where you actually went to Hong Kong, they're filming it real time. When you see Jackie Chan spinning and falling down, and then running up and jumping, like in other movies, there's a movie we watch, and I watch in The Line of Duty 3. She jumps through this little narrow gap and she climbs up. I can only imagine the outtakes. Sometimes she hurt herself, but they filmed it while she was doing, not where she just slowing. They cut away and she's already through that side. No, and so it's cool how they do these people. They train themselves to this. They actually, and Jackie Chan, he said, like, by the time he was 40, when he in the early 90s, when he finally made it famous.
Yes.
By then his back was shot.
So Jackie Chan's not the biggest guy. He was like,
No, but I'm saying, doing all these stunts, they hurt themselves.
Yeah, they sacrifice, and you know, he had to form his own insurance company and stuff. And you know, I think it's a really good point that you bring up there, because we love the '80s, and we of course talk about you know, '80s action films, and we didn't want to automatically assume that it was completely American, because to me, I think American films in the '80s totally went off the rails, and we'll be talking about that tonight with Anglin from I Love Comics when we talk about our top 10 movies of 1983. There's some really gushy, great ones, but just absurd and ridiculous, and I don't like them. And you know what? I agree with you, and I think your description of this movie is very blunt but very honest. And that, you know, now that you've said it, I have to agree. It 100% looks like they spent about 75-80% of their time, money, and attention on the opening 10-15 minutes and the closing 10-15 minutes, and they just put filler crap in the middle. I don't care that they did it that way, because I would agree that you got to hook them at the beginning and you got to, you know, deliver at the end, you know, and it's a simple formula. Doesn't mean it's easy, because again, the stunts are fantastic. But that's kind of what we get with these things. And that being said, is as much as there's some parts in the middle, I'm going, yeah, I don't get the comedy stuff. It's not funny, but at least there's some creativity in there too. And it's colorful film. It looks really good. But I'm telling you, just like I say, the beginning and end, I look at that and go, God, I wish I could see something like that in today's films, as far as, you know, American films, without the fast cuts and everything else. Johnny's mentioning in chat a good comment where he says Jackie was giving his friends the rub so they could get their own success. Absolutely. I can see that in here too. And Johnny's also talking about a Korean film, The Villainess, for a great female lead action movie. Yeah, we just kind of stumbled on some stuff in the 80s that we knew we were wanting to talk about. And sometimes the challenge for us is, one, the availability of films to find. This one you can see on Daily Motion, which I don't believe is illegal or anything.
No,
not on the up and up. So check that out, guys, there too. I believe there's a very good print on Daily Motion that I saw, like 720 or whatever. And another place has it in 2 parts. But there might be a couple scenes that were slightly edited out just for different things, and the title might be different. The one I saw on Daily Motion was English dubbed, so it was no problem following it. But that being said, you know, we're picking and choosing some of these to go through, and definitely the females kicking ass thing is something we wanted to focus on, because in the 80s, you know, we talked about strong female roles, strong male roles. And so for us to find a movie like this, even though there's a big chunk in the middle that you might go, I wish it were American, there's still something to it that I'm going, you know what, as dopey as these guys are, as much as I almost didn't care about them as characters, they did stand out apart enough where we can say ESP guy, retard guy, this guy's, you know, bad teeth guy, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
At least they were trying something.
I almost dare say that I kind of wish that Chuck Norris would have did more Hong Kong stuff. You know, because when I watch this stuff and I see he doesn't move as fast. He has a different style.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's but when he does, you know, yeah, he's got those powerful kicks. You know, like he basically like TKO you. But I noticed that even in his later movies, we were going through last year, the closer he gets to the later 80s, the less martial arts he's doing, the more it's guns.
Absolutely. And that's a theme with any action guy for the most part in the 80s. And again, I always bring up Seagal with people not being crazy about it. But, you know, he eventually turned to guns. And part of that's an age thing. Part of that's just we don't have to do too much anymore. And I think the appreciation of the martial arts definitely fizzled out by the late 80s, early 90s. And right here in the 80s, we've got just this height of creativity, not just in American films up to this point, but also overseas. And we definitely have an international audience. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to take a look at it, because it's got some great female characters. It's got Jackie Chan, I wouldn't say is a central character at all, but we get to see a bunch of people we don't know too much about, make some interesting discoveries about, wow, really kick-ass action stuff. I was not a big Sammo Hung guy, but then, you know, I see this film, I'm like, you know, this would be a
what I also want to point out, and a lot of 80s Hong Kong, you know, martial arts movies, when they have the cops had their guns, their pistols tied to their pants. So you couldn't, you know, if you needed to use a gun, you know, you couldn't just steal a cop's gun. You had to drag him with you, or you rip his pants. So that's always interesting too. The way they do their police stuff, as far as compared to us in Hollywood. And Hollywood, like I said, 90% of that's fake. I don't, as far as what the cops do.
Yep.
It's just stereotypical. They one person did it. Well, we're all going to do it now. So,
yeah, overall, for my final thoughts, I'd say it was this is a decent flick with some great action in it. In all seriousness, despite how goofy I tried describing some of it, I did that because thinking about it that way made it more entertaining for me as I was suffering through the middle act. But there was definitely, like I say, an 80s feel to it, and the action, like I say, is definitely worth it. It's not too gimmicky. Oh, it's a hot chick doing a little bit of action stuff. I just really don't know what to expect. And like I say, the opening, ending are great. The middle's hit or miss. You might enjoy some scenes that I described or not. You can do a lot worse.
I also got a little bit of nostalgia feeling when Sammo Hung's trying to steal the ward. Ed gets the warden, lets him go. He goes, he's going to try and unlock the warden's car, and he has the old-fashioned locks, not these power locks.
Yep.
So he's reaching the wire in there. I'm like, man, when's the last time we've seen that in a movie?
Look, they have a great structure. You'll recognize what they're trying to do the entire time. That's really good. That makes it comfortable. That makes it feel very watchable. This is not a hard film to watch. There just may be some parts that you just go, okay, I don't think it's funny. And I'm just saying that for me. You might like it. Others might like it. That's the thing to it. But the action is totally there. Yes,
when they actually do it, though. But when Jackie Chan's going to the warehouse, when you start seeing the mannequins pop out, he kind of knew what was going to happen right away. He's going to get ambushed. And
yeah, if only Christopher Lee joined up in there, because I swear it's a complete ripoff of Jackie Chan versus Scaramanga. And frankly, if you put Christopher Lee up against any of these guys, including the Ninja Clan, we all know Christopher Lee wins. I'm just saying.
Why would I want Sauron in there from Lord of the Rings? No, I don't want him in there. I would rather have Christopher Walken doing martial arts.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the doctor for showing up tonight. Check this film out. Let us know what you think about it, too. Get ready for Top 10 Tuesdays 1983. We'll be sending that link out here shortly. Be interesting to see what films RDV has seen, or in this case, may not have seen, because there's definitely a lot of good films in the 80s, too. Any final thoughts real quick, Doctor?
Yes, go watch Winter Sinners. Skip this movie. And if you need a link, DM me.
All right, good night, guys. As always, remember, stay extreme.
Cheers, guys.